The Watcher, a family's nightmare in their dream home. Imagine moving into your dream home, a sprawling mansion filled with promise and new beginnings, only to find yourself hunted by an unseen predator who knows your every move. The chilling tale of the Broaddus family, known as the Watcher case, is a haunting true story that unfolded in Westfield, New Jersey, in 2014. What began as a joyous milestone for Derek and Maria turned into a relentless nightmare that no amount of police intervention could stop. A mysterious figure, cloaked in anonymity, sent terrifying letters that tore apart their sense of safety, leaving them and the authorities powerless to act. This is the disturbing story of a family stalked in their own home, where the police could offer no protection against an invisible tormentor. In June 20, Derek and Maria Broaddus purchased 657 Boulevard, a stunning $1.3 million home in the affluent, quiet town of Westfield, New Jersey. The 6-bedroom, 3,900 square foot house, built in 1905, was a symbol of their hard-earned success. With 3 young children, the couple saw it as the perfect place to build memories. Westfield, a picturesque suburb known for its low crime rates and top-rated schools, seemed like an idyllic setting. The family was thrilled, eager to renovate and settle into their forever home. But just 3 days after closing the sale, a letter arrived in their mailbox. It was addressed in an odd, handwritten scrawl to the new owner. At first, Derek assumed it might be a neighborly welcome note, but as he read the contents, his heart sank. The letter began innocently enough. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. But the tone quickly grew sinister. The writer, who signed off as the Watcher, claimed to know intimate details about the Broaddus family, including the names and nicknames of their children. "Why are you here? I will find out," the letter warned. It mentioned watching the house, noting specific details like the family's renovations and even which windows their children played near. The writer asked, "Have you found what is in the walls yet?" A cryptic phrase that sent chills down Derek's spine. The letter ended with an ominous promise. "You are now part of 657 Boulevard, and I am watching." Shocked, Derek and Maria contacted the Westfield Police Department immediately. The police took the letter seriously but found no fingerprints or DNA evidence. They advised the couple to keep the matter quiet and avoid alarming neighbors, as the stalker might live nearby. But the lack of leads left the police with little to act on. The Broadduses, shaken but determined, decided to move forward with their plans, hoping it was a one-off prank. Weeks later, a second letter arrived. This one was even more disturbing, addressing the family by name and referencing specific activities, like the children painting in the basement. "I see you've been busy with renovations," the letter taunted. "Do you need to fill the house with the young blood?" I requested. The mention of young blood felt like a direct threat to their children, aged 5, 8, and 10. The Watcher seemed to know their every move, even describing which child was seen playing in the backyard. The letter again hinted at secrets within the house. "The walls have stories. Have you checked them yet?" Maria, now terrified, insisted they stop bringing the children to the house during renovations. The family hadn't fully moved in, staying at their old home while work continued, but the letters made 657 Boulevard feel like a trap. The police increased patrols around the property, but without a suspect or physical evidence, their hands were tied. Detectives interviewed neighbors, including the Langfords, an elderly couple living next door, but found no concrete leads. The Langfords, who had lived there for decades, seemed eccentric but harmless. Still, the Broadduses couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. A third letter arrived a month later, escalating the threats. 657 Boulevard is turning on me. It read, "It is angry that you are taking so long to move in. I will call to it, and it will answer." The Watcher claimed the house had a will of its own, demanding the family's presence. The letter included chilling details about the children's routines, like which one was the artist and who likes to run in the yard. It ended with a threat. "You do not want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy." By now, the Broadduses were unraveling. Derek, a former insurance executive, became obsessed with finding the culprit. setting up security cameras and hiring a private investigator. Maria, a lawyer, struggled with anxiety, unable to sleep knowing someone was tracking their family. The police, while sympathetic, could only offer limited help. Without a direct threat of violence or a clear suspect, they couldn't justify deeper action. The lack of fingerprints, DNA, or even a postmark left them stymied. Was it a jealous neighbor upset about newcomers, a disgruntled former owner, or someone with a vendetta against their family? They learned the previous owners, the Woods family, had received a single strange letter from the Watcher just before selling but dismissed it as a prank. Why hadn't they disclosed it? The police questioned the Woods, but they claimed ignorance, and no evidence linked them to the letters. The neighborhood itself became a source of paranoia. Westfield's tight-knit community, once a draw, now felt claustrophobic. The Broadduses shared the letters with a few neighbors, hoping for clues, but this backfired. Rumors spread, and some residents accused the family of fabricating the story to back out of the sale. Others speculated they couldn't afford the house and were creating a scandal to justify selling. The police investigated local suspects, including a man known for odd behavior who lived nearby, but his DNA didn't match samples from the envelopes. One theory pointed to Michael Langford, the adult son of the elderly couple next door. He was in his 60s, lived with his mother, and was described as peculiar by some neighbors. The police questioned him, but his mother, Peggy, insisted he was harmless, and no evidence connected him to the letters. Another neighbor, a single mother, was briefly suspected after her boyfriend's odd behavior raised eyebrows, but again, no proof emerged. The private investigator suggested the Watcher might be using a typewriter, as the letters had a distinct font, but searches of local homes turned up nothing. As months passed, the Broadduses' dream crumbled. They halted renovations, unable to move into a house that felt like a prison. The children, unaware of the full extent, sensed their parents' fear, asking why they couldn't visit the new house. Derek and Maria's marriage strained under the stress, with arguments over whether to sell or fight back. They filed a lawsuit against the Woods for not disclosing the Watcher letter, but it did little to ease their terror. The police suggested installing more cameras and hiring security, but the cost was prohibitive, and it wouldn't stop the letters. Derek spent nights staking out the property, hoping to catch the Watcher in the act, but no one appeared. The family consulted a forensic linguist who analyzed the letters and suggested the writer was older, possibly male, with a flair for drama, but this didn't narrow the suspect pool. A former FBI agent hired by the family speculated the Watcher might be someone with a personal connection to the house, but searches of property records revealed no clear motive. By early 2015, the Broadduses decided to sell. They listed 657 Boulevard at a loss, hoping to escape the nightmare, but the Watcher's shadow loomed. Potential buyers were scared off by the story, which had leaked to local media. A New York Magazine article in 2018 detailed the ordeal, sparking national attention, but it only deepened the family's distress. Some Westfield residents resented the publicity, claiming it tarnished the town's reputation. Others sent the Broadduses hate mail, accusing them of seeking fame. The Westfield Police Department faced mounting pressure but remained happy. The letters, while menacing, didn't contain explicit threats of physical harm, which limited legal options. New Jersey law required a clear intent to act for stalking charges, and the Watcher's vague warnings didn't meet that threshold. Detectives tried tracking the letters' origins, but the hand-delivered envelopes offered no clues. They even set up a sting operation, leaving a decoy letter in the mailbox to lure the Watcher, but no one took the bait. The police's inability to help left the Broadduses feeling abandoned. Derek pleaded for more resources, but the department lacked the manpower for constant surveillance. The private investigator uncovered no breakthroughs, and even high-tech solutions like analyzing local Wi-Fi signals for unusual activity led nowhere. The Watcher seemed to anticipate every move, taunting the family with their untouchability. In 2017, the Broadduses rented out 657 Boulevard, unable to sell it. The renters reported no letters, suggesting the Watcher's fixation was on the family, not the house. In 2019, they finally sold the property for $959,000, a significant loss. The new owners, a young couple, have not reported issues, but the watcher's identity remains unknown. The case spawned theories galore. Some believe it was a neighbor with a grudge, others a prankster exploiting the family's fears. Online sleuths on platforms like Reddit suggested the Broadduses themselves wrote the letters to get out of the purchase, but no evidence supports this. A Netflix series, The Watcher, dramatized the story, but the real-life mystery persists. The police closed the case due to lack of leads, leaving the Broadduses with no closure. The Watcher case is a chilling reminder that even in a safe, suburban enclave, unseen dangers can lurk. For the Broaddus family, 657 Boulevard was no home. It was a stage for a faceless tormentor's game. The police, despite their efforts, couldn't protect them from the psychological terror of an unknown stalker. The Watcher's letters stopped, but the scars remain, a testament to how fear can infiltrate even the most idyllic settings. The story of the Watcher is not just about a house or a family. It's about the fragility of safety and the limits of those meant to protect us. Who was the Watcher? Why did they target the Broadduses? And what secrets, if any, lie within the walls of 657 Boulevard? These questions linger unanswered as the family moves on, forever haunted by the shadow that watched them. What if the phone in your new home started ringing, even though it was disconnected, and the calls seemed to know too much about you? In a haunting true story shared on platforms like Reddit, a person moving into a new house faced an unsettling mystery that left them terrified and the police powerless to help. The eerie sound of a dead landline ringing in the dead of night, coupled with strange noises and cryptic discoveries, turned a fresh start into a nightmare. This is the disturbing tale of the phone stalker, where an unseen force tormented a resident through inexplicable calls, and no authority could provide answers or safety. The story begins with an individual, let's call him Alex for clarity, moving into a modest, older home in a quiet suburban neighborhood in the early 2010s. The house, a fixer-upper with creaky floors and outdated wiring, was a steal, perfect for someone starting anew. Alex, excited about the change, was eager to settle in despite the home's quirks. The neighborhood was unremarkable, with friendly but distant neighbors, and the house came with a landline phone, a relic from decades past, still plugged into the wall in the living room. On the first night, as Alex unpacked boxes under the dim glow of a single lamp, the silence was shattered by the shrill ring of the landline. Startled, Alex froze. The phone company had confirmed the line was disconnected, no service, no dial tone. Curious, Alex picked up the receiver, expecting silence or a telemarketer's mistake. Instead, a faint static crackled, followed by what sounded like distant breathing. "Hello," Alex said, heart racing. No one answered, but the breathing grew louder before the line went dead. Shaken, Alex chalked it up to a glitch, perhaps old wiring playing tricks. They unplugged the phone from the wall, double-checked the jack, and went to bed dismissing the incident. But the next night it happened again. Around midnight, the unplugged phone rang, its bell echoing through the empty house. Alex, now unnerved, hesitated before lifting the receiver. This time, a low hum filled the line, almost like a chant, unintelligible but rhythmic. It stopped abruptly, leaving Alex gripping the phone in silence. Over the next week, the calls became a nightly ritual. Always between midnight and 3 a.m., the disconnected phone would ring. Sometimes once, sometimes 4 minutes on end. Alex tried ignoring it, but the sound pierced the quiet, impossible to tune out. Each time they answered, the noises varied: static, breathing, humming, or once, a faint whisper that sounded like their name. Alex, now sleep-deprived and anxious, called the phone company again. A technician visited, tested the line, and confirmed it was dead, with no signal or connection to the outside world. "Maybe it's a prank," the technician suggested, but he had no explanation for how a dead line could ring. Desperate for answers, Alex contacted the local police. An officer arrived, listened to the story, and inspected the phone. When Alex demonstrated the lack of a dial tone and the unplugged cord, The officer's skepticism was evident. "Could be kids messing with you," he said, but he promised to file a report. He suggested Alex replace the phone or ignore the calls. But without a clear crime or evidence, there was little the police could do. They drove by the house a few times that week, but the calls continued, always at night, always unanswered by any logical explanation. Alex began documenting the incidents, noting the time and nature of each call. One night, after a particularly long bout of ringing, Alex ventured into the basement to check the phone's wiring. The basement was damp, cluttered with old furniture left by the previous owners. There, tucked behind a stack of boxes, Alex found a dusty notebook. Its pages were filled with dates, times, and cryptic notes. Answered, 12:47 a.m. No answer. 2:15 a.m. spoke. Asked for name. The entries spanned months, predating Alex's move-in, and seemed to log phone activity. The final entry, dated the day Alex moved in, read, "New voice, cautious." The discovery sent Alex into a panic. Someone had been tracking the phone's use, possibly watching the house. The notebook suggested a pattern, as if the caller was testing responses, cataloging who picked up and when. Alex called the police again, showing them the notebook. The officers took it as evidence, but admitted it wasn't much to go on. No fingerprints, no names, just a creepy record. They canvassed the neighborhood, asking if anyone had noticed suspicious activity, but neighbors claimed ignorance. One elderly woman mentioned the previous tenant, a reclusive man who moved out suddenly, but she had no details. The calls didn't stop. If anything, they grew more aggressive. One night, the phone rang for nearly an hour, stopping only when Alex yanked the cord from the wall in frustration. The next day, they replaced the old phone with a new one, hoping to break the cycle. But that night, a new phone rang too. Despite being unconnected to any active line, the sound was different, sharper, almost insistent. When Alex answered, a voice whispered, "Why are you here?" Before the line cut out, the phrase echoed the notebook's eerie tone, suggesting the caller knew Alex was digging into the mystery. Alex's fear turned to paranoia. They installed a basic security camera outside, hoping to catch someone tampering with the house. But the footage showed nothing. No one approached the property during the calls. The police, now familiar with Alex's complaints, suggested a psychological evaluation, hinting that stress might be causing Alex to imagine things. But Alex knew the calls were real. The notebook was proof. Someone had been watching the house, maybe for years. The basement became a focal point of dread. Alex avoided it. But one night, driven by a mix of fear and determination, they searched it again. Behind a loose panel in the wall, they found an old rotary phone, its cord severed, covered in cobwebs. When Alex brought it upstairs, it rang in their hands, despite having no connection. The sound was deafening, vibrating through the house. Alex dropped it, and the ringing stopped, but the experience left them shaken. They called the police, who arrived but found nothing unusual about the rotary phone. "Old houses have quirks," one officer said, but his uneasy expression betrayed his words. The police were at a loss. Without a suspect, a motive, or physical evidence beyond the notebook, they couldn't justify a deeper investigation. They suggested Alex move out temporarily, but Alex, stubborn and financially tied to the house, refused. The officers increased patrols, but the calls always came when no one was around. They tested the phone line again, confirming it was inactive. It even checked the house's electrical system for interference, but found nothing. The lack of a clear threat, physical harm, wasn't explicitly stated in the calls meant no charges could be filed, even if they caught someone. Alex hired a private investigator, hoping for answers the police couldn't provide. The PI traced the house's history, discovering it had changed hands multiple times in the past decade, with tenants leaving abruptly. One former resident, contacted by phone, admitted to hearing weird noises but never elaborated, hanging up quickly. The PI suggested the calls might be a prank using old telecom equipment, but he couldn't explain how a disconnected phone could ring. He installed motion sensors in the basement, but they never triggered during the calls. The psychological toll on Alex was immense. Sleep became impossible. As the phone's ringing haunted their nights, they stopped inviting friends over, afraid of being seen as unstable. The house, once a symbol of independence, felt like a prison. Alex began to question their sanity, wondering if the police were right about stress-induced hallucinations. But the notebook, the rotary phone, and the consistent timing of the calls were too real to dismiss. One night, the calls took a darker turn. The phone rang, and when Alex answered, a voice said, "Look outside." Terrified, Alex peered through the window but saw only darkness. The line went dead, but minutes later, a shadow moved across the backyard. Too quick to identify, Alex called the police, who searched the property but found no footprints or signs of intrusion. The incident pushed Alex to the edge, and they began staying with a friend, leaving the house empty. After weeks of staying away, Alex returned to pack up and sell the house. The calls had stopped in their absence, but the notebook remained, its pages a chilling reminder of the ordeal. The police closed the case, citing lack of evidence, and the PI admitted defeat, unable to crack the mystery. Alex sold the house at a loss, warning the new owners about its history. They'd never heard if the calls resumed. The phone stalker case remains unsolved, a baffling tale of technology defying logic and the stalker who left no trace. Was it a prankster with access to old phone lines, a former tenant with a grudge, or something less explainable tied to the house itself? Online forums speculate about paranormal causes or hidden wiring, but no theory holds up. The police's inability to help left Alex alone against an unseen tormentor, a victim of a mystery that turned a new home into a source of terror. This story underscores the limits of authority when faced with the inexplicable. For Alex, the ringing phone was more than a nuisance. It was a violation of safety, a reminder that some threats lurk beyond the reach of help, leaving only fear in their wake. What if you were a police officer, responding to a desperate call for help, only to find yourself chasing a voice that leads to an empty room with no escape? In a chilling true story shared among law enforcement circles and recounted on platforms like Reddit, officers in a small American town faced an incident that defied logic, leaving them shaken and unable to assist the woman who begged for their help. The eerie cries from a locked room, the absence of any trace, and the police's powerlessness to explain or resolve the situation turned a routine call into a haunting mystery. This is the disturbing tale of the haunted house call, where the line between reality and the inexplicable blurred, leaving everyone involved questioning what they encountered. The incident occurred in the late 2000s in a small, unnamed town likely in the Midwest, based on details shared in online accounts. It was a quiet night, around 2 a.m., when the local police station received a frantic 911 call. The caller, a woman, was sobbing, her voice trembling with fear. "He's trying to kill me. Please, hurry. I'm locked in the bathroom," she cried, giving an address on the edge of town. She claimed her boyfriend was pounding on the door, threatening her life. The dispatcher, sensing urgency, sent two officers, Officer Daniels and Officer Carter, to the scene, warning them of a potential domestic violence situation. The address led to an old, two-story house on a secluded street, its paint peeling and windows dark. The neighborhood was known for its older homes, many of which had seen better days, but it wasn't a hotspot for crime. As the officers approached, their flashlights cutting through the night, the house was eerily siloed. No screams, no banging, just the hum of crickets. They knocked on the front door, announcing their presence, but no one answered. The dispatcher confirmed the woman was still on the line, whispering now, saying she could hear the officers but was too scared to leave the bathroom. Daniels, the senior officer, tried the door. It was unlocked, creaking open to reveal a dimly lit foyer cluttered with old furniture. The air felt heavy, the kind of stillness that sets nerves on edge. "Police, come out with your hands up," Carter called, his voice echoing. They heard a faint cry from upstairs, the woman's voice pleading, "He's still here. Please, help me." The officers exchanged a glance, drew their weapons, and moved cautiously up the creaking staircase, following the sound. The upstairs hallway was narrow, lined with closed doors, The woman's voice, now clearer, came from the end of the hall. "He's outside the door," she sobbed through the 911 line, still connected via the officers moved quickly, their training kicking in, expecting to confront an armed suspect. They reached the last door, a heavy wooden one with an old-fashioned lock. The woman's cries were unmistakable now, coming from inside, accompanied by faint thumping, as if someone was trying to break in. "Ma'am, we're here. Open the door if you can," Daniels shouted. The woman replied, her voice muffled. "I can't. It's locked, and he's still out there." Carter tried the handle locked tight. They called for the suspect to surrender, but no response came from the hallway or beyond the door. The thumping stopped, replaced by the woman's panicked breathing over the phone. The dispatcher confirmed she was still on the line, hiding in the bathroom inside the bedroom. Daniels made a snap decision. "We're coming in," he yelled, and with Carter's help, they kicked the door open, splintering the frame. The room was pitch black, the air stale. Their flashlights swept across a small bedroom, dusty, with a single bed, a dresser, and a closed door on the far wall, presumably leading to the bathroom. The woman's voice, now faint, came through the phone. "He's gone quiet. I think he heard you." But as the officers scanned the room, they froze. It was empty. No suspect, no signs of a struggle, just an oppressive silence. "Ma'am, where are you?" Carter called, moving toward the bathroom door. It was locked too, but the woman's voice was no longer audible in the room, only through the 911 line. The dispatcher relayed her words. "She says she's still in the bathroom, scared to come out." Daniels knocked on the bathroom door, identifying himself, but it got no response. The silence was unnerving, broken only by their own breathing and the faint crackle of the radio. They forced the bathroom door open, expecting to find a woman, but the tiny room containing only a sink, toilet, and clawfoot tub was empty. No woman, no hiding spot, no windows. The officers stood dumbfounded, their flashlights illuminating bare tiles. Carter checked the tub under the sink, even the ceiling for a trapdoor. Daniels radioed the dispatcher, his voice tight. "There's no one here. Are you sure she's still on the line?" The dispatcher confirmed. "She's whispering now. Says she hears you in the room." The officers searched the bedroom again, checking the closet, under the bed, even tapping the walls for hidden compartments. The house was old. Secret passages weren't unheard of, but they found no evidence of one. The woman's voice, relayed through the dispatcher, grew fainter, saying, "He's coming back. Please, don't leave me." Then the line went dead. The dispatcher tried to reconnect, but the call wouldn't go through. The officers, now on edge, swept the entire house, basement, attic, every room. It was empty. No signs of life, no trace of a woman or a violent boyfriend. Back at the station, Daniels and Carter filed their report, but the incident gnawed at them. They returned to the house the next day with a sergeant, hoping daylight would reveal clues. The property belonged to an elderly landlord who lived out of state, and it had been vacant for months, with no record of recent tenants. The neighbors, questioned again, reported no disturbances, though one mentioned hearing odd noises from the house occasionally. The phone line used for the 911 call traced back to the house, but it was disconnected, with no active service for over a year. The police contacted the phone company, who confirmed the line was dead, with nowhere to place or receive calls. The 911 system, however, had logged the call, complete with a woman's voice, lasting nearly 20 minutes. Detectives reviewed the audio, hearing the woman's desperate pleas and faint background noises, creaking like someone pacing outside a door. But without a victim, a suspect, or a physical evidence, the case hit a dead end. The officers were told to move on, but the incident left them rattled, with Daniels, a 15-year veteran, admitting he couldn't sleep for days. The officers shared the story with colleagues, and it spread through law enforcement circles, eventually surfacing online. Theories of some suggested a prank, perhaps someone hacking the phone line, but the disconnected line made that unlikely. Others proposed a squatter hiding in the house, but the thorough search found no trace. The landlord, contacted again, insisted the house was empty, and a property check confirmed no signs of habitation, no food, no clothes, No footprints in the dust. Online sleuths lean toward the paranormal. The house's age and history spark tales of a ghostly presence, perhaps a woman trapped in a past tragedy. Local records showed the house had been built in the 1920s, with a vague mention of a domestic dispute decades earlier, but nothing concrete. The officers, though skeptical, couldn't dismiss the eerie feeling of the house. Carter, younger and more open-minded, wondered if they'd stumbled into something beyond their understanding. Daniels, pragmatic, insisted there had to be a logical explanation, but he couldn't find one. The police considered mental health issues, wondering if the call was a hallucination or a hoax. But the 911 audio was undeniable. They explored the possibility of a remote call routed through the house's number, but the phone company found no evidence of tampering. A tech expert suggested old wiring could have picked up a signal, like a radio interference, but that didn't explain the woman's specific responses to the officer's actions. The incident left a lasting impact. Daniels and Carter rarely spoke of it, but when they did, it was in hushed tones, as if revisiting the memory might summon the voice again. The police department closed the case, labeling it an unresolved anomaly. The house remained vacant, eventually sold to a developer who renovated it into apartments. No further incidents were reported, but the new residents weren't told of the call. For the officers, the powerlessness was the hardest part. They'd trained to protect, to act, to solve, but this case offered no answers, no victim to save, no suspect to arrest. The woman's voice haunted them, her cries echoing in their minds. Was she real, trapped in some unexplainable limbo? Or was it a trick, a cruel manipulation of technology, or something else? The lack of closure gnawed at them, a reminder that some mysteries defy even the most determined efforts. The haunted house call remains a chilling footnote in police lore, a story whispered among officers and shared online as a true unsolved mystery. It's a tale of fear, not just for the woman who may or may not have existed, but for the officers who faced the limits of their authority. In a world of protocol and evidence, they encountered something that slipped through every net, leaving them with nothing but questions. This story underscores the terror of the unknown, where even those sworn to protect can find themselves helpless. The empty room, the locked door, the disembodied voice, it's a puzzle with no pieces, a case that challenges reality itself. For Daniels and Carter, the night they answered that call became a scar, a reminder that some calls for help echo beyond the reach of human aid.